A significant shift is underway in North American defense. The Canadian Armed Forces are undertaking one of the most comprehensive modernizations in their history. This is not merely a routine upgrade cycle. It's actually a fundamental re-evaluation of core military capabilities. Ottawa is systematically replacing key weapon systems that have formed the backbone of its land, sea, and air power for decades. What makes this transformation particularly noteworthy is the source of the outgoing equipment. 5 major United States-made systems are being retired. This move signals a deliberate pivot away from a long-standing reliance on American military hardware for some of its most critical operational needs. It represents a multi-billion-dollar strategic choice with far-reaching implications. This procurement overhaul did not happen overnight. It's the result of years of careful planning, competitive bidding processes, and intense debate within the Canadian government. The decisions reflect a new set of priorities for a nation grappling with a changing world. Challenges like asserting sovereignty in the Arctic, meeting NATO commitments in Europe, and responding to natural disasters at home demand a new kind of military. The Royal Canadian Navy, Canadian Army, and Royal Canadian Air Force all require platforms that are not only technologically advanced, but also sustainable and adaptable to Canada's unique geographical and geopolitical context. The move to replace these American systems is a clear statement of intent from a key United States ally. The scale of this change is substantial. It touches upon nearly every domain of modern warfare. From the fighter jets that patrol North American airspace to the anti-tank missiles carried by infantry soldiers, the changes are deep and structural. This is more than just a shopping spree for new military toys. It's a strategic realignment. Canada is diversifying its defense supply chain, seeking out the best available technology, regardless of its country of origin. This pragmatic approach is forcing observers in Washington and beyond to take notice. The long-held assumption that Canada would default to American systems for its major defense needs is being actively challenged by Ottawa's recent procurement decisions. For decades, the defense relationship between the United States and Canada has been defined by deep integration and interoperability. This was largely built on a foundation of shared equipment, training, and doctrine. NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command, is the ultimate symbol of this partnership. The decision to replace core American platforms with systems from Europe and elsewhere raises important questions about the future of this integration. While both nations remain committed allies, Canada's new path suggests a future where interoperability will have to be more deliberately managed rather than assumed. It's a subtle but important evolution in the world's most successful military alliance. The first and most prominent system on the chopping block is the McDonnell Douglas CF-188 Hornet fighter jet. Known simply as the CF-18 in Canada, this aircraft has been the sole fighter for the Royal Canadian Air Force since the 1980s. A variant of the United States Navy's F/A-18A/B, the Hornet has been a reliable workhorse, serving in conflicts from the First Gulf War to Libya and operations against ISIS. However, after 4 decades of service and multiple life extension programs, the airframes are showing their age. Maintaining the fleet has become increasingly expensive and challenging, and its capabilities are being outmatched by the advanced fighters now being fielded by potential adversaries. Next is the CP-140 Aurora, Canada's primary maritime patrol and anti-submarine warfare aircraft. Based on the American Lockheed P-3 Orion airframe, the Aurora has been the nation's eyes and ears over its vast maritime approaches, including the increasingly strategic Arctic. It has been in service for over 40 years. Like the CF-18, the Aurora has been extensively upgraded over its lifespan, with advanced Canadian-developed electronics and sensors. Despite these upgrades, the underlying airframe is old. The rising costs of keeping these vintage planes in the air, coupled with the need for a platform with greater range, speed, and endurance for modern missions, has sealed its fate. On land, the Canadian Army is phasing out its TOW, or tube-launched, optically tracked, wire-guided, anti-tank guided missiles. This weapon, a product of Hughes Aircraft and later Raytheon, has been a staple of Western armies since the Vietnam War. It provided Canadian infantry with a potent, vehicle-mounted capability to destroy enemy armor. However, the TOW system is a product of a different era. Its wire guidance system requires the gunner to remain exposed and maintain a line of sight to the target until impact. Modern battlefields demand more advanced fire-and-forget systems that allow soldiers to engage a target and immediately seek cover, increasing survivability and effectiveness. Another system being retired is the M113. a tracked armored personnel carrier that first entered United States service in the 1960s. Canada has operated a large fleet of these vehicles in various roles, from troop transport to command posts and engineering vehicles. While the M113 was revolutionary for its time, its thin aluminum armor offers little protection against modern threats like improvised explosive devices, heavy machine guns, or advanced anti-tank weapons. The Canadian Army's experience in Afghanistan highlighted the vulnerability of these legacy platforms. A more protected, mobile, and versatile vehicle is needed to transport troops safely in contemporary conflict zones. Finally, the Royal Canadian Navy is replacing its Halifax-class frigates. While the ships themselves are Canadian-designed and built, their core anti-air warfare capability relies on the American RIM 162 Evolved Sea Sparrow missile and the AN/SPS-49 long-range air search radar. The Halifax class has been the workhorse of the Navy since the 1990s and has undergone a significant mid-life modernization. However, the fundamental design is now 30 years old. The government has determined that a completely new, larger, and more capable surface combatant is required to face the naval threats of the 21st century, from sophisticated anti-ship missiles to quiet enemy submarines. To replace the aging CF-18 Hornet, Canada has made its choice clear. Ottawa is acquiring 88 F-35A Lightning II stealth fighters. This is notably a United States-led international program. However, the selection process was a long and politically fraught saga, where other non-US contenders like the Swedish Saab Gripen were seriously considered. The F-35 brings a generational leap in capability, with its stealth characteristics, advanced sensor fusion, and networking abilities. This choice maintains a high degree of interoperability with the United States Air Force and other key allies. While an American system, the decision was not a default but the result of a reopened competition, which is a significant detail in itself. For the crucial task of maritime patrol, Canada is turning to a trusted American platform, but with a twist. It is purchasing up to 16 Boeing P-8A Poseidon aircraft. The P-8A is based on the civilian 737-800 airliner, making it more reliable, faster, and more efficient than the turboprop Aurora it replaces. This aircraft is the United States Navy's choice for maritime patrol, ensuring seamless NORAD and NATO cooperation. This decision underscores that when a United States system is deemed the best fit and offers strong interoperability, Canada will still select it. The P-8A provides a quantum leap in anti-submarine and anti-surface warfare capabilities, essential for patrolling Canada's 3 coastlines. The replacement for the TO anti-tank missile marks a distinct turn towards Europe. The Canadian Army has selected the Spike LR-2 missile system from the Israeli company Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, which will be supplied through a joint venture with the German firm Diehl Defense. The Spike LR-2 is a state-of-the-art fire-and-forget missile. It features an advanced electro-optical seeker and a fiber-optic data link, allowing the operator to update the target in flight or switch to a new one. This significantly improves soldier survivability and tactical flexibility compared to the wire-guided TOW, representing a clear choice for superior technology from a non-US source. For its new land vehicle needs, Canada is acquiring 360 Armored Combat Support Vehicles from General Dynamics Land Systems Canada, based on the Swiss MOAG Piranha 5 design. While General Dynamics is a United States parent company, the vehicles are designed and will be built in London, Ontario. This choice emphasizes domestic industrial benefits. These wheeled vehicles offer vastly improved protection, mobility, and versatility over the tracked M113 as they replace. The decision reflects a modern trend towards highly mobile wheeled platforms and highlights Canada's priority of supporting its own domestic defense industry through the procurement process. The most ambitious project is the replacement for the Halifax-class frigates. Canada has selected the British Type 26 frigate design, which will be known as the Canadian Surface Combatant. These 15 new warships will be built in Canada by Irving Shipbuilding. The combat system integrated into this British hull will largely be American, featuring Lockheed Martin's AN Spy-7 radar and the Aegis combat system. This creates a hybrid vessel, a British-designed ship, built in Canada with an American combat brain. This complex multinational solution was chosen to provide a top-tier capability while maximizing domestic shipbuilding and industrial participation. Cost is undeniably a major factor in Canada's procurement decisions, but it's a nuanced calculation. It's not always about choosing the cheapest option up front. Instead, the focus is on best value, which includes lifecycle costs for maintenance, upgrades, and operation over several decades. In some cases, a non-US system might offer comparable or superior capability at a lower long-term cost. The initial competition for a new fighter jet, for instance, saw extensive debate over the F-35's high operating expenses compared to rivals. Canada's methodical approach aims to avoid the spiraling sustainment costs that have plagued some legacy American systems, ensuring the military can actually afford to operate the equipment it buys. Technological capability is perhaps the most critical driver. The Canadian Armed Forces are looking for specific features to meet their unique operational requirements. The choice of the Spike LR-2 missile over American alternatives like the Javelin was driven by its superior range and versatile guidance system, which was deemed a better fit for Canadian doctrine. Similarly, the selection of the Type 26 frigate design was based on its acoustic quietness, a crucial attribute for anti-submarine warfare in the noisy and challenging waters of the North Atlantic. Canada is no longer content with simply buying off the shelf from its southern neighbor. It is conducting a global search for the best possible technology for the job. Political considerations and industrial benefits play an enormous role. The Canadian government's procurement policy, the Industrial and Technological Benefits Policy, legally requires companies awarded major defense contracts to undertake business activity in Canada equal to the value of the contract. This means that a bid from a European or American company is often judged not just on the weapon system itself, but on the quality of the jobs, investment, and technology transfer it promises for Canadian industry. The decision to build the ACSV and CSC vessels in Canada are prime examples, channeling billions of dollars into domestic shipyards and manufacturing plants, making procurement a tool of economic policy. Finally, there is the matter of sovereign control and diversification. Relying too heavily on a single supplier, even a close ally like the United States, creates vulnerabilities. Diversifying the sources of military hardware reduces this dependence. It ensures that Canada is not beholden to the political whims or export controls of one nation. The U.S. international traffic in arms regulations can create complex and sometimes restrictive conditions on how American technology is used and shared. By sourcing key systems from the UK, Germany, and Israel, Canada gains greater autonomy over its defense capabilities and fosters a more resilient and independent defense industrial base for the future. These procurement decisions will undoubtedly change the texture of the US-Canada defense relationship, but they are unlikely to break it. The partnership is too deep and too vital to both nations' security. However, it will require more deliberate effort to maintain the seamless interoperability that has long been its hallmark. When Canadian frigates with British designs and Israeli missiles operate alongside US Navy destroyers, ensuring that communication systems, data links, and tactical doctrines are perfectly aligned becomes a more complex task. It will necessitate more joint exercises, technical working groups, and a shared commitment to developing common interface standards to bridge the technological gaps. The impact on North American security, particularly through NORAD, is a key area of focus. The choice of the F-35 and P-8A, both premier U.S. systems, is a clear signal that Canada remains deeply committed to the integrated defense of the continent. These platforms will plug directly into the U.S. military's command and control networks, enhancing the collective ability to detect and respond to threats from the air and sea. Where non-U.S. systems are chosen, such as the Army's new missiles and vehicles, the impact on continental defense is less direct. These systems are designed more for expeditionary operations overseas under a NATO or UN mandate, rather than homeland defense missions alongside U.S. forces. This shift could, paradoxically, strengthen Canada's position as an ally. By acquiring what it deems to be the most effective tools for its needs, Canada becomes a more capable and self-reliant partner. A Canadian Army that can confidently defeat modern armored threats, or a Canadian Navy that can independently hunt the quietest submarines, is a greater asset to the NATO alliance than one equipped with aging, less effective gear. The U.S. may prefer allies to buy American, but it benefits more from having allies who are potent and credible in a real-world conflict. A stronger Canada makes for a stronger North America and a more robust Western alliance. However, the diversification of Canada's arsenal may introduce new friction points. U.S. defense contractors, a powerful lobby in Washington, will view the loss of these major Canadian contracts unfavorably. There may be subtle political or diplomatic pushback. Furthermore, issues surrounding the security and protection of sensitive technology from different national sources will become more complex. integrating an Israeli missile system or a British ship design into a military that operates closely with the US requires robust firewalls and information sharing agreements to protect everyone's intellectual property and security interests. Managing these complexities will be a new test for the enduring US-Canada alliance. It is tempting to view Canada's procurement choices as evidence of a decline in American military-industrial dominance. The United States is no longer the automatic, undisputed provider of the best military hardware in every single category. Capable and innovative defense industries in Europe, Israel, and other parts of the world are producing world-class systems that are highly competitive. Countries like Sweden with its Gripen fighter, Germany with its Leopard tanks, and Israel with its advanced missile technology are now major players on the global stage. However, framing this as a decline of the US might be an overstatement. The United States defense industry remains by a significant margin the largest and most technologically advanced in the world. In the highest-end, most critical capability areas, such as fifth-generation stealth fighters like the F-35, advanced bombers, aircraft carriers, and nuclear submarines, US dominance is still largely unchallenged. Canada's decision to buy the F-35 and P-8A confirms this. For the most crucial aspects of North American defense and high-intensity warfare, Canada still turned to American technology. The US remains the preeminent systems integrator and the leader in network-centric warfare capabilities that define modern military power. This situation is better understood as a strategic maturation on Canada's part. It represents a shift from being a passive consumer to an active and discerning customer. Canadian defense planners are making pragmatic, capability-focused choices rather than decisions based on tradition or political convenience. They are conducting a global scan for the best equipment to meet Canada's specific needs, which include Arctic sovereignty, naval anti-submarine warfare, and supporting its domestic industry. This is the behavior of a sophisticated, independent nation making smart choices in its own self-interest, which is ultimately what the US should want from its allies. This trend is not unique to Canada. Many other US allies, including key NATO partners in Europe and nations like Australia and Japan, are also pursuing mixed fleets of military equipment. They often procure high-end American systems for core capabilities while also sourcing other equipment domestically or from third countries to foster industrial growth or fill specific niches. This global pattern suggests less of a US decline and more of a global adjustment. Allies are seeking to build more resilient, diversified, and self-sufficient defense postures, a development that could ultimately lead to a more balanced and robust collective security architecture for the West. In conclusion, Canada's decision to replace 5 major US weapons systems is a landmark moment in its defense policy. The retirement of the CF-18 Hornet, CP-140 Aurora, TOW missiles, M113 APCs, and the Halifax-class frigates marks the end of an era. The acquisition of American, British, and Israeli-German systems represents a deliberate and strategic pivot. This is not anti-American sentiment but a calculated strategy driven by complex factors. The quest for superior technology, better long-term value, robust industrial benefits, and greater strategic autonomy. This modernization is reshaping the US-Canada defense relationship, introducing complexities but not weakening it. The core alliance through NORAD is being reinforced with common platforms like the F-35 and P-8A. In other domains, the relationship will evolve, requiring more conscious effort to maintain interoperability. Canada is positioning itself as a more capable, self-reliant ally which ultimately serves US and NATO interests. A transition from assumed partnership to one actively and intelligently managed. The broader implications for American military dominance are nuanced. This doesn't signal decline of US defense industry. Instead, it highlights a competitive, multipolar global arms market where nations shop for best-in-class solutions internationally. The US remains leader in critical high-end technologies but no longer holds a monopoly on military excellence, a new reality Washington must navigate. Canada's actions are those of a pragmatic, sovereign nation making choices for its security needs and economic priorities, a story of strategic evolution, not revolution. Ottawa balances its alliance with Washington with pursuit of its own national interest. This pivot is less a parting of ways and more a recalibration for the 21st century. The strongest alliances aren't based on dependence but on shared strength of capable, independent partners,